I want to thank Deputy Cian O'Callaghan for the work that he's put into this largely undealt with issue by the government. It has really been off the political agenda in this country, whilst we have seen some reports and dealing with it in the UK. I think it's probably been off the agenda here because unless you've been in the footsteps of someone who faces the rental crisis that we face in this country, I think it can be difficult to fully appreciate or understand the impact it has on an individual. I know we have many landlords in the chamber, but I'm not sure how many of us actually currently rent. I've rented for probably around 20 years of my life. I've rented as a student, I've rented as a single person, I've rented as a mother, I've rented all over Ireland, I've rented overseas. And I have had some really good landlords and I have had some really bad landlords. But I suppose the one consistent thing throughout that whole rental experience is the level of vulnerability you have as a renter. It's that thing that sits on your shoulder where you know at any point, at any day, you could get that email or that letter through the door saying that your landlord wants you to vacate your premises, your home. And it is constantly with you and it makes you very vulnerable and it is a constant stress. I have never had to rent in a housing crisis, thankfully. I have never had to rent in a situation where a country is about to take in potentially 100 or 200,000 people who are desperately in need of accommodation. And I have never had to rent in a situation where I didn't have family supports around me or I didn't understand the language of the country I was renting in, or where I was really sort of fighting for the survival of my children. So I think what we're going to see, and we have seen because of the housing crisis, and what we're going to continue to see, is that the power dynamic between a landlord and a tenant is cavernous. It is incredible. And that makes people very, very vulnerable. And it is the government's responsibility to step in and offer those people the protections that they need from that predatory, disgusting behaviour that some, very few landlords, but some landlords do wield over tenants and particularly women seeking to house themselves and their children. I welcome the fact that the government has said that it won't object to the bill, but you do need to go further. As my colleague has said, you need to actually bring it through the Dáil and the Seanad and get it and make it into legislation. We cannot be in a situation where in 5 or 10 years' time there's all these scandals coming out and we knew what was going to happen and we didn't actually take a stand and government didn't put the supports and the protections in place that we're saying is obviously needed. The bill, as Deputy O'Callaghan says, it doesn't just make it illegal for someone to offer or request sex for rent. It also makes it illegal for a platform to house that offer or to hold that offer. And I think there really has to be a lot of questioning as to those media institutions that are allowing that to happen. And I think it is important that they are held to account. Why they would ever allow anyone to use their platform for that kind of reprehensible disgusting offer is beyond me, and I think that's an important part of the bill. I think this bill is incredibly timely, as I said, because we will have thousands of refugees coming in, mostly women and children. And as Deputy O'Callaghan said, there was a story in the Examiner this week where we have already started to see that kind of behaviour being forced on very vulnerable people. So it's important that that is put into place. We do acknowledge that this bill isn't a panacea. We're not claiming that it will solve the situation because ultimately the greatest protection to vulnerable women and people in our society is access to housing. And people will remain vulnerable until there is actually a roof over their heads, until they feel that they have no other option but to take, to have to put up with the offers that are being made or in some instances, I would imagine, take those offers on board. But this bill is an important step. It's an important protection. And we would really ask that the government put it in place, make sure it gets through quickly so that we can send a very, very clear signal to those that think that this could be an option and that we will not accept it, we will not tolerate it, and we will do everything within our powers and within your powers to stop it and make sure it doesn't happen. Thank you.
Deputy Catherine.